Hey, all right, we are live. Thanks for joining me this week. And I just want to jump right in. Um, can you give us? So we're going to talk about meta and cultural manipulation. Um, and we talked a little bit about this before the podcast started. And I think if you gave a brief background on what we're talking about, it would be much better than if I did. So I
Yeah,
think
sure, man.
I'll just
Oh,
turn it over to you.
cool. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is fun to do, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very excited.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's so many facets to cultural manipulation, and I think meta, as I was kind of explaining to you earlier, is maybe an end result in a way, and I guess could probably explain that more in depth, but it seems to me, and you know, my level of expertise is just being a human being living in the United States of America and, being aware of the news and the things going on and the culture around me and just life experience. But it seems to me that there's kind of this like weird push or direction to move people into this state of, I, I'll just maybe generalize and say, are you really living? And what do I mean by that? Do you have a pulse? Yep. Do you have a, breath in your lungs? Sure. Is things happening in your brain chemically? Of course. But
Okay.
are you experiencing life in the way you were meant to? And I mean, you could go down many different paths of that. Life has different value to absolutely everyone, and different things mean more to you than they do to me, and vice versa. But are you living your life in such a way where you're predictable? You are There's not a lot of thought, free thinking. Are you just doing the same, redundant behavior every single day? And so when I look at things like the metaverse or just maybe culture in general, you can kind of see this trend that we're all moving towards. And this is just my opinion, but
For
it
sure.
seems like we're creating a population of people that perhaps is starting to lack that ability to think for themselves, who rather than going and doing things and enjoying them in the moment they're in, they're capturing them on a screen or on a device or something. They're living through that device and not through their own eyes and ears. And so I think that's kind of what I guess I think of when I talk about cultural manipulation. And like I said, the whole meta thing is the end result. It seems to me that if the powers that be, the they, when we always talk about this, if they had it their way, and I think I mentioned this earlier, we'd probably all live in a 50 square foot apartment. We'd be plugged into some weird machine. Your face to face human interaction would probably be a minimal. You'd be in the system for the system, and you'd be, kept alive by the system in a weird way. And that sounds very like dystopian, of course. Like,
You're
you
right.
know,
I
I
was thinking
mean,
about this.
it does, and it seems like a far fetched science fiction movie. And I mean, I don't think tomorrow we're all going to wake up and it's going to be like the Matrix, and we're all going to be, floating in some pods connected to some machine. That's not my point. My point is, I think we're moving in a direction where that could be a reality, but maybe not literally. Maybe it's a reality, just with the way we interact as humans. And I think so much of that comes from pop culture, comes from our way of life. I mean, look how much has changed since COVID. I mean, I would have never imagined, I'd be working from home every single day, and unfortunately, I'm in a scenario live out of state from 90% of the people I know. And,
Right.
most of my colleagues and stuff have since moved because we all work remote. You can live wherever you want to. So, I mean, like, and I probably said this to you before, in the dead of winter, I might go outside of going to the gym. I might go 2 weeks without having like a face
Like
to
human
face.
contact.
And yes, that's weird. And you can tell that what it does to your psyche as well. I mean, I almost every single year since, well, I mean, it's not like I have a huge pool to sample from, but we'll say in the last couple of years, as you kind of get through the dead of winter, and for the audience, whoever may watch this, I live up in, Wisconsin. It gets, short days, cold. You tend to not really go out and do a lot of stuff, but by the mid to the end of winter, you're like in a weird like state of mind. You would do anything for some sunshine and a conversation, and it's almost I'm not really a depressed sort of person. I'm generally pretty happy-go-lucky, and I wouldn't say I'm an extrovert by any means, but I can carry on a conversation and all those things. But man, I've noticed the last couple of years it just kind of drags you down not having that interaction, the hugs, the handshakes, the eye contact, seeing a person's emotions right in front of you. I mean, those
Right.
are things that I just are invaluable to us as humans. And I don't know, seems like a lot of that's getting lost in our way of life, as I just pointed out, with kind of this new way of working for so many people. I mean, it's not an isolated incident, working remote, but also, I mean, you look at younger generations or our generation with the way we are with phones. I mean, most of Trevor, you and I talk, but a considerable amount of it's through text message, and
Right. Yep.
granted, I we live 600 miles away from each other, so there's a reason we don't talk face to face all the time. But you know, it's kind of a case in point where, and I think another result of that is as you look around to everything happening in the world right now, whether you look at crime rates rising, violent crimes at that, you just I mean maybe that's just one example to go on here, but you always ask yourself, why are those things occurring in such dramatic fashion now? And I would wager that it's because we've desensitized ourselves from what another human being is. Are these people that are just so brashly committing these crimes, whether they're going into a store and robbing them in broad daylight, or you know beating somebody up on the street for apparently no reason whatsoever? Is it because they you know totally despise that person, or they don't see the value in that person's store, or is it they don't see they lack the well the sensitivity, I guess is maybe one word for it, towards what that human being is. They are a father, a son, a mother, a daughter, a grandpa, an uncle, whatever it might be. Maybe they don't see that because most of their interactions with people is through a screen. And I mean, I could probably give examples of my own life of that. I mean, there's a once upon a time where I played a lot of video games, and you start to like you're playing Call of Duty for hours and hours on end. You kind of start
Sure.
to
Oh yeah.
ask yourself like if I was in a situation like this, could I inflict harm on another person? And then I'm always like, well, yeah, I mean, no problem. I'm you're conditioning your mind for it. But then when you really think about it, you're like, oh, absolutely not. That sounds horrible to do to anybody for any reason. And I don't know. Those are just maybe some of my opening thoughts, I guess, on this topic. But it just like I don't think you can argue that this stuff isn't happening. It's just maybe what your perception is of it.